a lot of our pain is actually a result of the dysfunction and the poor delivery of these municipal entities. But it's also council. We elect those councillors. They all sit there representing us. We all vote for them, and they sit there representing us, and they are the ones who perform oversight on these entities.
Here we are in the province of Gauteng, which has been in the news, and quite deservedly so, because suddenly it dawned on Gauteng's most prominent citizen, part-time president Cyril Ramokgopa, that the place is a complete mess. The man lives up the road from me. He drives the same roads I drive. He drives on the potholed streets where the street lights don't work. Maybe he doesn't know that the power's out, that the water doesn't run, because I presume he's off the grid. But suddenly, Gauteng's become very much in the news. Why? Because we've got the G20 summit scheduled to be held in what used to be called Johannesburg, and now we call it Gotham City. For those of you that know, that was the poster child for a city in decay. Johannesburg is a mess. Gauteng is a mess. And today I've got one of the MECs of the Gauteng province, but it is somebody I happen to like, and that is Vuyiswa Ramokgopa from Rise Mzansi, our MEC for Agriculture in Gauteng. Welcome to the State of the Nation.
Hello,
Vuyiswa,
Mike.
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
We spoke just after your appointment.
Yeah.
And since we last spoke, I have had Songezo Zibi here, and in his role as Scopa head.
Chair, yeah.
He does look a bit older than when I saw him before he became
wisdom,
Scopa head.
It's wisdom.
I don't think it's wisdom. I think that looked like pure frustration mixed with anxiety, because he's the guy who's trying to hold people to account.
Yeah.
And that seems like a very interesting job that I know a lot of people I don't like, and I just don't even know if I'd even want them to have that job, because we see people come and go out of that Scopa position without making any headway. He is fighting the good fight, but he's there. And we'll touch on that a little bit later, because in a sort of a weird way, you're his boss. You're still chairman of Rise Mzansi. So I presume you've got to call him in to answer to you every now and again. But let's talk about our province of Gauteng. Now, as I said, and I was quite involved in the negotiation, not like I was there. I kept a very close eye on the negotiations, that the deal that was struck and then unstruck for a province of provincial unity,
Yes.
a GPU, which suddenly the paperwork that had been agreed to wasn't agreed to, unagreed to, and the DA and the Freedom Front Plus and a few others were left out of the thing, and we now have Gauteng being run by a minority government headed by Panyaza Lesufi, who clearly lives in a different province to me. Because every time he gets a microphone, which is regularly, but he won't come on this show. Panyaza, come on, I thought you were brave, man. I know we did have a telephone conversation that didn't go too well, but we'll go easy on you. Come on to the show. Don't be such a coward. But Gauteng is in steep decline, and you're part of that government. What do you think of Gauteng and its current situation?
Well, I am a resident of Gauteng, a lifelong.
But Cyril Ramokgopa is a resident as well.
No.
He only realized that
I'm
the
a
traffic lights
lifelong
aren't
resident
working.
of Gauteng, and so of course I agree. I mean, I've watched the decline and the decay of Gauteng happening progressively, before my eyes. I was born in Hillbrow,
Right.
Mike.
Snap, both of us.
So I used to play in Joburg Park. My parents were in the arts. We'd go to the Market Theatre, the Joburg Gallery. And obviously, that's just not possible anymore. And I think the city of Joburg, there's nothing that illustrates the decay of Gauteng like the city of Joburg. It's supposed to be the jewel in the crown, and it really has just fallen to pieces. So the decay of Johannesburg in particular is undeniable. But of course, the province itself has taken a lot of strain. And I think what I certainly appreciated was in the recent State of the Province address, and which you may have seen, the Premier actually he actually went to quite a lot of detail, describing and acknowledging a lot of those issues. And I think that, for me at least, symbolizes, one, the urgency of the crisis, but two, that there now has to be a very clear articulation of, one, what are the issues, and two, what's being done about them. And now, coming back to obviously my role and our role as Rise Mzansi, when we campaigned and went and knocked on people's doors and asked them to elect us, we did that because we wanted to play a role in actually solving the problems. And I believe that being part of the Gauteng government gives one a seat at the table and the ability to actually contribute to that turnaround. Now, of course, I'm not the Premier. And of course, mine is but one department in many. And it's probably not even, one of the key ones. But I believe that wherever we are sitting, no matter what role you have, and I'm fortunate to have a role in the Executive Council, I'm using that role to help solve the problem, which is, create jobs, drive economic growth in our province, help clean out the rot in the state right now. In my own department, I have put a number of measures in place to actually clean out some of those issues and start getting things back on track. And I think we have to appreciate that the change we're looking for is not going to be an overnight success. It has to be a concerted and collective effort of people doing what they can wherever they may be located. And so that's the role that I'm really trying to play in the Gauteng government.
You don't think that your inclusion in the Gauteng cabinet and the support that you give, the legitimacy that you give to the province, is actually giving him, that is the Premier, who clearly does what he does, legitimacy that he doesn't deserve? I don't know where I actually do. You wouldn't expect me not to. But I think it's absolutely disingenuous to hear him apologize or to hear Cyril Ramaphosa be shocked by the state of Johannesburg.
Sure.
When in the case of Panyaza Lesufi, he's been influential in that party for more than a decade, right? He's the guy who has overseen many of the catastrophes that we are living. Suddenly say, oh, God, I'm so sorry. Don't know how this happened. You were there all along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, firstly, I'm flattered that you think I'm able to lend the province that much legitimacy by my mere existence. But to be honest, that's not what it's about. I think even at a national level, the GNU is made up of a combination of parties who represent potentially different constituencies, who are brought together because of the fact that there is no single party that got a majority, and are there to help drive the change, So those who have executive roles are doing, again, their bit in their roles. And I think that that's what I'm there to do as well. We did not get a majority.
Yeah.
If we did, I wouldn't have to share power with anyone. But, this is what we got. And I think the objective now is to do what we can with what we got.
Yeah. But like I said to members of the DA on this platform, this is now your government. So when your government decides to take somebody to the ICJ or to tell Donald Trump to keep his America and you'll keep your Zimbabwe, that they're doing it in your name. It's your government. If the US decides to sanction ministers, they must sanction the DA ministers as well, surely. Yeah. So if Gauteng is a mess, where does this line end? You can't stand back and say, oh, no, that's not me, that's him.
Well, Mike, if not us, then who? Who must fix this mess? And if not now, then when?
Yeah.
Must I wait? Must we wait for 2034 for a perfect electoral outcome before we start getting stuck in to fix the issues? We can't. There's a crisis on our hands now. There's a country that needs to be fixed now, and there are people who are capable and competent and able to lend a hand to that work. And I think that's the posture that we take. And I must also say there is value, and I'm sure even the GNU ministers at national government will be able to attest to this. There is value to having a seat at the table and being able to influence.
There's a value, sorry to interrupt, but there's a value, but only if you use it.
No, I know.
Otherwise, it's just a seat at the table.
Yes,
it's
but
just
I'm saying, remember, it's not it's not a zero-sum game. I'm saying you have a seat at the table by virtue of the nature of a government of national unity or provincial unity. You go there to advocate for your position, and you go there to try and drive change and influence from the inside. And I mean, I think the beauty of having, an executive role in Gauteng is that one does get to sit at the table, one does get to give input, and one does actually have an opportunity within my own portfolio, at least, to make very direct interventions. And it's a start.
Okay.
And change is incremental, as I'm saying. My sense is that, the journey we're currently on is that we have to show South Africans that there is life after the ANC, that there are leaders outside of the ones that they've come to know and love, and that change is possible. And we can only do that by building up a proper record of success that we have in the spaces where we have been given an opportunity. I mean, you make the point even about Mr. Zibi. Zibi's got a fantastic opportunity now, and he's working hard and holding a lot of these state-owned entities accountable and driving transparency. And all of that is part of the project of slowly shifting South Africa into the new political reality that I think we all aspire to.
Okay, so let's then move it on, because you say at least you got a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So tell us how you've used that seat at the table so far. You've been there, not forever, but it's been, about 8 months or so?
Yeah.
There's some stuff that happens within your department, which the numbers don't lie. You went from within your own department, there was, I've got it here somewhere, there was reckless and wasteful expenditure, 8 billion, which is now gone. We've got some great news. We are having another State of the Nation business breakfast on the 16th of April at the Sandton Convention Centre. Our speakers for this particular event, Minister Gauteng Mackenzie, probably South Africa's most popular politician at the moment, and well-known analyst and a guest many times on the State of the Nation, Dr. Frans Cronje. And these two gentlemen will be keeping us informed of where South Africa is and where it's going to. If you want to come and join us at our breakfast, have a look at the information in the description below. We'd love to have you there. Right?
Yes, okay. I was like,
no, there was in the previous year.
Okay, there
was.
Was.
Compare
yes,
with
now it's gone. Thank you.
So now it's gone. Either you're, there, I'm tick. Well
Thank
done.
You.
That's great. And I want to lead with it. It was my first article. I'm busy looking at the bottom of the page. So clearly within your department, right, you're making a difference.
Yeah.
So now to the beleaguered citizens of Gauteng, are you able, and I don't want to sort of just gloss over your portfolio, but you're at a bigger table. So on the one hand, you're the MEC for agriculture, but now at the bigger table, are you able to drive any change other than saying, much like Leon Schreiber, look, we've cleared the backlog at Foreign Affairs, or Home Affairs. Right, now you can get a passport in a couple of days. Never happened before.
Sure.
And hope like hell that the fire starts. Or are you able to hold anybody else to account or improve things?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe let me start kind of with the macro. The agricultural sector in Gauteng, while highly underrated, it actually contributes about 6% to our GDP. And that's quite significant because it's not just about the percentage contribution, but the type of impact. So in terms of the type of employment that's created out of the agricultural sector, the impact on the broader value chain, be it through processing, microprocessing and manufacturing, driving export growth, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the type of growth we want to see if we want to grow our economy. And I think the portfolio itself gives one a real opportunity to start actively doing that through, the programs that we initiate, the export agreements that we have already negotiated, some that may have come before us, some that just need to be implemented, but others that we've also been able to implement ourselves. So there's that element around doing our part for the heavy lifting work of actually creating jobs in this economy. And I mean, it's I think in the last quarter, the Gauteng agricultural sector created 10,000 new jobs. And these are real sustainable jobs, So it's not going to solve the 2.6 million people in one foul swoop, but it's relevant and it's important. And I think if we can do more of that, we can get more, right? So that's at a macro level. and then come down to my role in Exco. So what people maybe don't recognize is at a provincial level.
Before we get to your Exco,
Yeah.
I do want to say, because the last time you were on, and Vuyiswa set me straight, because, I was carrying on about people, not the other parties, because Gauteng's got 10 MEC positions, and then what happened is that they increased it by 3, of which Vuyiswa runs agriculture. But I said it wasn't an important portfolio, and she set me straight. So I went and did my research, which I should have done beforehand, previous time. So I do apologize. It's significant, and it is something. So if you're watching and you think Gauteng, as I did, and you think Gauteng and agriculture, you've got to be joking. It's this little province. It's a heavy weight when it comes to agriculture.
Yeah, no,
and agri-processing and stuff.
And I'm glad you have
so
you have
there,
done
you got
that.
my apology.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So I was going to say, coming to the Exco role, and you've correctly said there are 10 MECs, 10 members of cabinet. They were not increased. It's not actually, you're not legally allowed to do that. And hence why there was that kind of tussling, because effectively what it meant is it had to be a zero sum. Whoever if there are more people coming in, others have to go. So currently, with our one seat in the provincial legislature, we obviously sit in Exco. But what that means is that you also get to sit at the Exco table and influence the provincial strategy and get at least engaged on the plans of the province. Now, you may not necessarily all agree with everything. Not everything. It's not like they took our Rise Mzansi manifesto and implemented it word for word. Of course not. Because you've got the PA sitting at that table, IFP, ourselves, and of course the ANC who sits at that table. And you also have, mind you, the objectives and strategy of national government, which is actually sits even above a provincial level plan. So you plug into a system of government that's already on the move even before you sit at the table as an individual. And so and I think that's also what a lot of the GNU ministers would have discovered, that you don't come in and kind of like throw everything out and start over. That's not how government works. There are planning cycles, there are budgeting cycles, and within that, you are able to then make that incremental progress, but it all has to be within that framework. So we plugged into the system, and obviously one then is able to make input at that table to say, why don't we rather focus on this area and rather than focus on that? One of the areas, for example, that I personally have raised very sharply is around issues of cleanliness in our city of Joburg and in our province. I mean, it is plain to see. It's obvious. But my appeal is that as the Gauteng province, although our mandate is limited insofar as kind of cleaning of local municipalities, because that sits with some, your entities like Pick It Up. It sits in local municipality. But we have to play a role in coordinating that activity and elevating it to a point of provincial urgency so that everybody understands what has to happen. And that's something that I've kind of been advocating for quite strongly. And there are many other things. What people also maybe aren't aware of is kind of like when you sit on a board, you've got your board members and you've also got subcommittees that you oversee within a board. So I'm currently leading the international relations sector coordination on behalf of the province, which is also very helpful because coincidentally, as you've said, we've got G20 happening this year. But what it also enables myself to do is to really get involved in the work of fostering trade relations, international relations, and deepening relations on behalf of the province with other countries. And that's, an opportunity one wouldn't have had. And I think it positions Gauteng in a particular way. It enables you to influence, trade relations, even at that level. And I mean, I haven't done too much traveling, but fortunately, when there have been delegations that have come to South Africa, be it Chinese delegations, from the EU and otherwise, you can actually be able to advance some of the things that Gauteng wants to do. And so there's that element. And then, of course, like you say, there's the department itself. So I think it's a lot more holistic than people might imagine. And the truth is, and you said this point, which is very true, that once you get into government, it is your government. That's the truth. You have to from 9 to 5, you are a government official. When I walk into a public meeting and there's a community that is not happy, and if they're unhappy about water provision or any other service delivery, I can't say, it wasn't me, I'm not involved, I'm not responsible for water. But I think that is the posture that we have to take, because it's our government, but collectively it's our country. And we are all here really trying to, well, certainly I am, I think, and you are, we all want the same thing. We want this thing to work. So when one, appears, no matter, when I'm not in party colors, you do have to show up and represent government. But when you sit at that table, you are able to make your inputs, to advocate for certain things, and to advance your position.
Now, your impact at the bigger table. Yeah, I mentioned that you've managed to eradicate the irregular and wasteful expenditure in your department. But Gauteng overall, our wasteful and irregular expenditure went from 3.5 billion rand to 14 billion. It went up from 14 million to 3.5 billion rand. So, what gives?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is absolutely the reason why we have to get stuck in to changing this, because the 3.5 billion you speak of doesn't come from one individual or one department. It's cumulative, losses that are accumulated across the entire government. And I'm saying it does start with actually making the change where we are. But further to that, and you're right in saying, in questioning, are we now not able to hold people accountable? Of course we are. The party still exists. And I think this is another really interesting feature that South Africans in general are starting to see, where you have a party that would have otherwise been an opposition party, but also is now in government. And what that then highlights is that there's the separation between the party and the state. The party still has its objectives. It's still growing. It's still there to help champion and raise certain issues. And that work is happening consistently. If you follow any of our media channels, we're raising those issues through our channels of engagement. But at the same time, we're kind of able to have this dual existence of actually, on the one hand, being able to raise issues as a party, on the other hand, being able to execute on some of these things whilst in government. And also, similarly, my own party is able to pull me aside and say, this, that is not working, or we're not happy with ABCD. How do we relook that? And I think this is also the picture that we start seeing emerging. And I think a lot of parties are now starting to experience that duality of being both in government, but also wanting to play this opposition role. And I think if you ask me, I think it is the future of how South African politics is going to shape up.
Yeah.
Because after 2026 elections, if you are a party worth your salt, every party will be represented in some level of government somewhere.
Yeah.
And you will not be able to say, I only sit on this side, I don't sit on that side. You have to be able to manage all of those dynamics.
Yeah, and that Kasatu rubbish of, how can you be in coalition with these because they don't align with you? That is rubbish. We all share the same goal, which is to make the country better. Vuyiswa, would Gauteng, the province, be in a better position had the original coalition agreement stood? Because there was very little difference in support between the ANC and the DA in Gauteng, right? And, there was an agreement in place, which obviously was reneged on. But do you think Gauteng would have been better off having a proper provincial unity or not?